So hello, it's me, it's that Dave BV. Welcome again to our birthday week editions of VPC. Hello, Griff. I'm going to be joined by the amazing and lovely Duration. So, as ever, if you've got questions during the feed, just pop them in a little question box and we'll try and get to as many as we can in the course of our chat. Thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, that's all I've really got to say. We're going to be drinking some very, very sexy beers this evening. Which is good. It's a Friday. You've earned it. So, yeah, let's get Duration on and we can start our festivities. Hopefully. Oh. Don't know how we've done that. Oh, it won't let me. Full of technological wizardry this week, aren't we? Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
How's it going? Yeah, good thanks. Not too bad.
Good. How's the weather?
It's really sunny. I just suddenly thought, let me sit outside, and it's actually really bright.
Can't knock it. So it's going to be storms going forward. So we've got to make the best of it as we can, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, I've gone really grey. It's knocked down. Look at that.
We're all doing it, don't worry. So thank you so much, firstly, for being on Virtual Pub Club.
You're welcome. Thanks.
It's great to have you on. So as is tradition on Virtual Pub Club, I'm going to start with a very easy question. Who are you?
I am Miranda, and I am one of the founders at Duration Brewing. It's a husband and wife team. The husband is Bates, who's actually just finishing off a brew, so he's going to literally come up the drive in a minute. Our brewery's in Norfolk, about 10 minutes away from where we are here. We moved from London and built a brewery in a historic priory barn because we wanted to connect brewing back to its agricultural roots.
Awesome. So I sent a few questions ahead, but I expect that's quite a nice place to start, really, of what got you into it? What made you do this?
I think Bates, our brewer, always had a brewery in his head. He'd worked at other breweries and he's been a chef, and he's always been around what comes into the table offering. And I think he's has a clear way of how he'd like to present things and do things. So I think it was always going to be something he was destined to do, and he'd never found an idiot brave enough to do it with him until he found me.
So did you have a background in beer beforehand? How did you get into the passion side of this?
Bates, he brewed and chefed pretty much since he was about 18, and he's knocking 40 now. So yeah, he was in the 90s, kind of, flipping burgers, and he started off just in kitchens and being a sort of kitchen porter and working in bars, and really went through an apprentice route into chefing, and ended up working at some of the sort of most high-end fine dining gastronomic kind of places in Charleston, Greenville, and all around South Carolina. He started brewing at a really small brewery. I forget its name. I think he brewed at both the smallest and the largest breweries in the state of South Carolina, commercially. And then when he came over here, there wasn't that much. I guess. And the is it called Uto beer inside Bermondsey Market, and he was like, I don't know about beer, and they've got, a world selection, American selection, German selection, and there wasn't really that much in the English selection. And we used to go down to Colonel, and then Brixton Brewery popped up, and he was friendly with them, and then he worked for a bigger brewery called Brewdog for a little bit, helping them put the kitchens into the bars as they were sort of expanding their bar repertoire. And then I kind of just got into it by default, really, and like found nice food and nice drink. So if someone's going to give me both, then I'm really happy.
So were you always a fan of beer, or is it something you've warmed to just because you've had to?
Yeah, I remember sort of playing pool in my uni days and sinking a few, and I didn't really mind what beer it was. I remember there was a Freedom brewery that we used to drink in Leeds, but yeah, always into beer, definitely. Always into craft beer. Probably got into it because of Bates, and he took me on a tour around sort of, it's about 7 to 9 states in America, and we actually did the Bourbon Trail as well.
Oh, wow.
And he took me up to Vermont, and we did all this crazy stuff, and we got friends in Chicago, and so I think it was probably through him, maybe 5-7 years ago, that I started drinking a lot more craft beer.
So tell us about what your role is and how you've kind of done the amazing stuff you've done. I mean, all right, we're going to crack a couple shortly, but
yeah, my role is sort of like anyone who runs a business. It's a bit of everything. So I was quite instrumental in raising the finances, and we've got a combination of our own. We sold our house, a small holding of investors that are mostly local or beer loving, and we got some grant funding, and then we got some bank loans. So I was quite I wrote a business plan and worked to sort of look at what 5 years of brewing could look like, in terms of a commercial entity, if we had this size kit and if we put it in this kind of places and we pushed these channels, and then did the pitch event with Bates. So we actually found the site really, really early on. So in late 2016, we'd found this amazing site, and we wanted to be, not too far from London so that we could transport the beer everywhere, and that's where people and my family are. So yeah, we wanted to sort of be out and in a rural sort of agricultural setting, but not disconnected. And you could say Norfolk's very disconnected, but it's its own little bubble, and it's lovely. So we knew to be here. There was loads to connect our beers to where they're from, with malt coming from here, and there's a national yeast bank here. So much of the nation's produce is grown here, and there's a real sort of history of farming. So we wanted to be here, and I thought, yeah, let's put on an event and invite all the people that might be interested to help it get off the ground. So we did a sort of, I wouldn't say Dragon's Den, but a stand up in a room and say, this is our idea. So I put that together. We were lucky enough that I plucked up the guts, courage to ask Paul Jones from Cloudwater to come along and give a keynote speech. And we'd said to Paul, why don't you just come and say how it's been for you? You're about to hit your 2nd birthday, and we think you're doing something with real vision, because you've put in quite a sort of meaty kit. You've thought about the space and how you want to grow into it. At the time, he was really connecting the UK, here comes the brewer, to the US. And he came along and just said, if you believe in something and you're passionate about it and you just keep at it, good things will happen. And all of the people in that room, they actually drank 5 Point pills, and yeah, we got 2 different 5 Point beers. I think they're pale ale, maybe they're, and they all sat down and were like, this is amazing. And we'd muled over a couple of cans from, hey Bates, we brought over a couple of cans from our travels, and we did sort of like a Pepsi challenge of, I think we did Camden and maybe Sierra Nevada, and what was the other one we did? Focal Banger and Budweiser. And everyone was like, art. And we were like, I know, right? Imagine if it was. And people got into drinking beer in this way that they're doing in all these crazy cities here in Norfolk, and people were like, why Norfolk? And we're like, why not? It's beautiful. The people here appreciate things that are made, with people's hands and traditions passed down and beers like that. So let's put tradition and modernity together and make really lovely beer out here.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Well, you're doing it right. So I suppose.
I guess my is sales and marketing. So I'm the talker for us. Bates has the idea how the beers come out, and he has the vision and he cements it into a beer, and then I do all the ancillary. So I look at our numbers, I look at our business, and then I look at where we want to be positioned and who we want to work with, who we don't want to work with, and how it looks and how it can be tangible to people. So that's how I see my role.
Awesome. Well, before we start diving deep into the questions, I think it's probably about time to crack a beer.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
I'll
do the same.
Can of Quiet
Nice.
Song here.
Yeah. So this literally went available on our website today, and we're going to do an official launch on the 4th of July. And we're taking a somewhat bold move in saying that we want this to become part of our core range. Do you want to come and tell us a bit? So yeah, putting a classic wit in a mainstay. Oh, he's doing
it. This is your turn, Bates, to show off.
This is Dave.
Hello.
Don't know if my phone's too high up.
There you go. You're both in.
I saw your halo, your phone flip round. Very, very professional.
Well, I've got, like you say about going grey in lockdown, I'm starting to look quite weathered, so a bit of flashing light can't go wrong, really.
Grace the age. I've earned these greys.
So, yeah, do you want to talk us through the wit? Because this is gorgeous.
Oh, that's more intimate.
Yeah, just wit, pretty much straight up. It's just all about kind of more the mashing regime. So go through a ferulic acid rest and protein rest and then saccharification. So you really give the yeast the optimization of bringing those flavors of the wit and everything. And then all the basics, coriander and bitter curacao, orange peel in the whirlpool. But it's really just about the yeast having that bit of herbs and spices to accent that. And then it's really about the brewing process, because I can use that same yeast strain. And we've made pails with it that don't have near that sort of clove and isoamyl acetate, which is that little bit of banana and all of that, if you just go through a different mashing regime. So it's very versatile yeast, very estery, but you can control those esters via how you introduce the wort.
And I think of a wit as a real summertime drink. You maybe spring, summer, don't you? But I really think there's a sort of particular time of day, and maybe you've got like fish on the grill and it's sort of a bit sort of hot from the beach, or I don't know, there's just a real refreshment element to it that I love in the way that I love with a lager, say. But
yeah,
I just think it's classy. It's just got a really nice, I don't know what, it's just a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, definitely. It's you've nailed the fruit profile in it. So it's like you say, it's that fresh, crisp, almost almost lager-like. But then you definitely get a hint of banana. Definitely get some citrus. It's this is definitely a barbecue drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of to the UK sort of drinking public. It's many of the style of beers that we show is everybody always thinks Belgian beers are one of two things. They're either really high alcohol, but they're always just lumping monastic beers, Chimay, things like that, or they think it's going to be slightly weird and funky and tart. So the majority of things that you drink in Belgium are more in like that 4 to 5%. You go to the Belgian sort of tourist trap bars, yeah, you're expecting the big chalice of Chimay, you know, get lit up drinking a couple of those sort of thing. But you go to the off-beaten ones, or you go to the local spots and stuff like that, and they're mainly drinking small saisons and small Belgian pales, in that 4 to 5% range. So,
Yeah,
good.
that's great. And it's going to be, well, hopefully a part of your core range.
We'd really like it. I mean, obviously, people have to want it for it to stay in there, but we really hope, and we've done a lot to try to sort of embed it in by making a little bit of a fanfare about it, and sort of trying to explain why we want to introduce this as something we're about. And I think people maybe expect us to be a little bit off the beaten track and not do the norm, given that we're setting up as a farmhouse brewery. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like the majority of our stuff, if we become known for our IPAs being more balanced than West Coast. If that's even a thing, it just used to be a balanced IPA. And then a third of it being all Belgian small table beers, and then a third of it being funky mixed fermentation sort of saisons and stuff. So we can still play that IPA and pale game, but it's just there's loads and loads and loads of hazy New England IPAs, and they're great. But like, if we just joined that trend, that'd be kind of disingenuous a bit. I'm kind of making the beers I grew up on.
There's also
West
that
Coast
that market's kind of covered, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of people doing really great pales and IPAs, and I feel, you know, they've got that corner, and I'm really chuffed that's there. And let's bring something else to the offering. Yeah.
So I'd like to think, if you know, I can steer you towards half a dozen breweries that are doing those amazing hazy, soft sort of beers, that's great. Go to them. But then if you want to drink classic German Pilsners and kind of West Coast balanced IPAs, and then delve into the day-to-day drinking Belgian beer, that's more our jam.
No, that's terrific. And as I say, I think viewers of this know that my dad's fully embedded now into craft breweries. But this is the kind of thing that, had this been around when I first tried to explain to him why I like spending more than £1 on a can of lager, be really easy to explain what goes into a beer. This is, exceptional crossover piece as well. Top stuff is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, while we've got Bates as well, let's kind of delve into some of the questions sent over for. So, what was the first beer that you ever brewed?
Sort of professionally, I guess, would have been either a German Pilsner or a Hefeweizen, because it started out at a small brew pub. Oddly enough, in the small town I'm from, there's a guy that ran a brew pub that was also a chemical engineer for the Savannah nuclear power plant. And he brewed all of the beer. And so I just got a job while in college doing mostly like science courses and stuff, and cooking, bartending, whatever, and then got interested in the beer. He was American, but raised in Germany, sort of thing. So all we produced was German Pilsner, Hefeweizen, and basically all the stuff he grew up with drinking in Germany. So that would be the first ones I made, sort of thing. Always liked those. And other things that we delve in would be kind of English ambers or oatmeal stouts, things like that. It was very classical, and which he always made them really well. So
yeah, so proper kind of root foundation brewing.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't dive off the deep end and like your first beer being a double IPA or per liter sort of IPA. If you know the basics and the bare bones of how do you make a good Pilsner, starting with water and starting with the malt and then yeast and fermentation. So you can delve those other places, but you can't run before you walk.
Yeah, it's like dressmaking. You got to have like the main structure before you start doing all the embroidery and
So how did the name come to be? Why duration?
Oh, we actually were nearly called Bates Family Brewing.
But then Suarez Family Brewing opened.
Oh yeah, Suarez opened. I think there's three main reasons, and Bates is quite a deep thinker, I'd say. You do a lot of reading, don't you? And enjoy music and like thinking a bit tangentially. And so I'll let him have that one. But the other two are in musical terms, it's just the distance between two beats. So it's about tempo. And we want to do fast beers and slow beers and fresh beers and funky beers. So it plays to those factors. And then also duration is quite translatable. So I feel like we just wanted a single word and something that could just be said over a bar or in a busy place, and it's instantly recognizable. So whatever the beer, if you want a pint of duration, and wherever you go, I think that's just quite easy to hear and easy to understand. So yeah, they're two of the reasons: musicality and just it's a word that is understood in a lot of languages, and people can just put whatever meaning they really want to it. But it does play to permanence and, you know, going the distance, let's say. But you also like this particular philosopher, didn't you?
Yeah, so there's a philosophy called duration philosophy from Henri Bergson. And he was kind of early 1900s, mainly into biology and stuff to begin with, but got into philosophy later in life and kind of mixed the two. Every living being on Earth, all the way down to cells and yeast, exert free will. So it kind of went a lot of other philosophies, because most all other philosophies go with everything's preordained. A only happens because B only happens because C, and that's all meant to happen. There's nothing you can do about it.
So science is logic and you're just following out a sequence.
So yeah, he got a little more in depth and said no, like everything down to little microorganisms and stuff like that, they make choices day to day. They live their life in order to evolve and evolve to their environment, and then
I think it's like
adapt to it.
It's like a reorganization. It's every creative living thing strives to reinvent itself in order to remain relevant. So there's that never staying still and always progressing. And I think that appealed, didn't it?
Yeah, and you can really see that on yeast, because that's like you can watch an evolution in a matter of 6 or 7 different beers it goes through, because you can start getting genetic drift solely because it's adapting to its environment. And these yeast don't like it as much, even though they were the same yeast, and they have things like gene transfer, and then they drop out earlier. So you end up cropping the ones that like that environment more, and then they go to the next environment. They don't like that one so much. So that's why after.
I feel like the names really become relevant during this period, because it's been very testing, and it literally has been like survive and thrive or adapt. And, you know, everyone's had to sort of just go to that critical path and be like, what matters, what doesn't. And while we've also had a lot more time to think, I think, but, you know, from a business sense, survival has been very evolutionary.
Yes.
Yeah.
While you bring that up, actually, and I hope you don't mind sharing, but when we spoke the other day, you mentioned that you guys have actually gone through quite a big change over this period for growth for the brewery.
Yeah.
Particularly with your kit.
So yeah, we went with a 20 hectoliter Browcon system that sort of, it's not automated, but it's got quite a lot of bells and whistles compared to your bog standard brewery. And we thought if we were going to invest all this time and energy into renovating this barn, the kit we put in, a lot of the advice we got was, you know, go for as the best kit you can get, and go for the biggest you can get, and design it to make the beers you want to make. So we did that, and we didn't actually put that many tanks in our cellar. So the idea was, you know, get a really beefy steam generator, a double size sort of hot liquor tank, and future proof as much as possible. So even design space, you know, if we want to put a fourth vessel in. And then as we grow, we won't get these funny growing pains where we've got to sort of pull things out and start again. And yeah, so we, because of the lockdown, I feel like you've got to come out the other side a little bit better. Otherwise, you're going to have incurred all this loss of time, and you know, you've got all these delays in your, if you've managed to defer your rent and your kit repayments and all of this stuff. So we thought, right, we've got to really, you know, we've only been here 3 months. We've really got to pull out all the stops and try to grow, because otherwise that cash flow will break at the other end. And so we put in another tank. So yeah, we actually went round really early on. We looked at our sort of our numbers, and we knew that it might be really, really tough, as it will be for a lot of people, because you don't know what income you're going to generate, and we're a new brewery anyway, so it's all a bit of a punt. So we actually went back to speak to some of our people that brought Duration together and our shareholding, and sort of said, you know, might you want to help us build a little war chest? And that was really just to sort of look after our cash flow, because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't survive. And we were really fortunate that we have people we can ask, and some of them weren't in a position to support and some were. And so then that was, you know, mid, you know, like 22nd of March or something, we'd done the numbers and had that conversation. So that was in hand. And in April, because we happened to be a brewery that could sort of shift to small pack, our kegs were just sat there in the fridge and not moving, and we said, right, let's go 100% small pack into can, as everyone that can do that did. And because the pubs were closed and we were one of the sort of breweries that could do that, we saw our stock deplete, which was brilliant and amazing. And we had a very ancillary kind of online shop, really, that really was infinitesimally small amount of our sales, and that grew as well. So we thought, right, if there is this demand and we don't know how long everything's going to last or what's going to happen, then we should not impede it. So we got an extra tank, and we might even get another one. So we've got an extra rental tank. So we had three tanks and 100 hectolitres of capacity, and we've now got 140 hectolitres. So we've gone up by 40%, and we've just, so we'll see whether that all sells. But so far people are still buying, and you know, we've got amazing independent retailers, especially the off trade at the minute, who have been keeping us afloat and kindly putting our name out there and taking our products. So thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing. I just think it's something I wanted to get you to talk about, because I think that's the progressive step that I think is great to see breweries take the opportunity during this time. It's where you have to take that step back and reel in, but you are looking at that bigger picture, and I think it's good news for people to hear that people, it's something in the bigger picture.
Yeah, and no one's out the woods by any means. I don't think. We were lucky, I think, at the scale that we're at, because we talk on a pub Zoom with, you know, people like Gypsy Hill and Wylam and Fine Ales, and they've got a huge volume to place at this point. We don't have that, and we have, well, when lockdown started, we had 3 staff. We've now got 5. So 3 full-time and 2 part-time. So, you know, we kind of dip under the radar. Like, we're not quite big enough to benefit from any kind of furlough. So everyone just had to work harder. So we're feeling pretty burnt out right now. But really thankful that there was revenue. And if anything, we always had a plan, and we had, you know, quite a clear business plan. And if anything, this has sort of sharpened it and made us look at it. And we've developed along the route we really wanted to go on. We've just probably shifted the channels a bit, and you know, there's no on trade, or on trade are just coming back now. So it's really helped me sort of piss or get off the pot kind of thing. Because so I was figuring out how my customers like to be looked after, and working wholesale mostly. And, you know, 85% of all of my orders disappeared on the 16th of March. And when you've only got 7 customers placing all that order, you're like, okay, we need to grow. So we got on the phone. You know, we were lucky enough that we'd been hosted at lots of venues and bars and pubs and places all around the country through the collabs we'd done. So we were ringing up all those people saying, hey, you know, I don't think our wholesalers are going to be operating for a little bit. Do you want to come direct? So yeah, we just opened up different ways. You know, any customer's a customer at this point, and ideally an independent customer is the best one. So we've also said no to a few places and a few supermarkets and a few big online retailers, because they're obviously on the make or on the lookout, you know, for an opportunity at this time, because there's going to be a lot of people, you know, needing to either place beer or need to stay afloat. So it is, if you're an economically, commercially, corporate minded company, it's a good time to clean up, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes it. Well, while on that point, Griff Bram's just asked, where can we get hold of your beer?
So I have a map that's coming out on Monday, and it's going to show you all the places where you can get the beer, our beer, based on our Quiet Song launch. So that is bit.ly, so bit.ly/Quiet Song Map. And that would be all of the places up and down the country that are taking part in our event, which is a national rollout on the 4th of July. We also have an online shop, but you don't need to buy it direct from us. There's lots of amazing, wonderful, great places up and down the country that we have steadily been supplying, and they've steadily been selling, or intermittently probably been selling throughout the time. So yeah, and an online shop. Most major cities, so Newcastle, Manchester, London, Bristol, Leeds, Norfolk.
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
So one of my favourite questions to ask, particularly when we have someone who actually does the brewing on, is, so Bates, what's the worst mistake you've ever made while brewing?
Can't really think of one.
Oh, so
I mean, like the worst might, I don't know,
forgot to put
under
the yeast
gravity,
in.
over gravity, but pretty meticulous. I mean, I don't.
Have you ever done an attempted beer that just didn't go where you wanted it? You know, like I don't know, you've done beers with carrots or beetroots in, something like that just didn't fly.
No, I mean, can't really think of like worst mistake. Nothing that was not salvageable or anything like that.
Worst mistake would be putting it out if you did it.
Yeah, mustard, then dump it. I don't know, it could be in the brewing side of it. Maybe I've left a valve open in the lauter ton, and instead of loutering out, it was draining into the floor. Then you have a hot, wet grain to pick up in the sort of drain there.
What's those other bits?
That's not really, it's stuck in the cooler because they're hot. Yeah, can't really think of anything that's catastrophic. That was just an extra hour on the day of having to clean that up.
Sounds fun.
Nothing huge.
Do you dabble in brewing?
No, well, funny enough, I did do a homebrew set once, and it was awful. So I realised I'll just do what I do best, which is drink it, and I'll leave it to better minds than me to do it.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. Why create a mess when all I have to do is save one can of each one I like and recycle the rest? It's an easy way for me. So, what would you say the attributes of a good brewer?
Probably on the actual brewing side, if you're spending hours around somebody every week, it's just get along with them. then meticulous, clean as you go.
Brewing is 80% cleaning, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate people that don't clean up as they go and just leave a mess at the end of the day rather than just doing little bits the whole time. Like, it drives me crazy.
I can vouch for that from in the kitchen.
Yeah, just mainly that. I mean, just attention to detail.
Also, I think you often say of me, when we talk about brewing, you say it's that you should draw your inspiration from broader than the chemistry books, you know, like you're looking at the actual component parts. You have to have a bigger vision for the beer. So sometimes, you know, it can be a song or a way that something, you know, we did a beer based on the way a summer's day smells, and like trying to think of what that inspiration point is as your starting point for what you want to make the beer to be. I think you often say that's really important. So you don't, you know, you could go to Heriot Watt and you could come out and have all the technical knowledge, but if you're not thinking outside a beer to bring into your beer, then it's not going to.
Yeah, I reckon the best brewers I've ever worked with are much like sort of the best chefs. They're
just what Chris said.
Like multi-talented. Like, it's great that you know how to, if everything goes right, brew a beer. Great. What if that pump breaks? Do you know how to repair a seal? What if the water cleaning system went down and you've got to clean up a mess? I know how to do that. Yeah, it's you can't just study one sort of aspect of it. Unfortunately, you got to be able to do some wiring. You got to be able to do some welding. You got to be able to do some repairs. You got to do stuff like that. That makes you better than just somebody that just wants to clock in at 8 and all I'm doing is focusing on the beer. What's great? There's 100 other things going on that pop up.
And this end of the brewing industry, it is a very multitask job, isn't it? So I'd never worked in a brewery, and I'd spent 2 years, you know, pretty much grafting to put this project together that was, you know, a 44-week build and running the biggest budget that I'd ever done. I used to do up houses and work with architects. I'm used to like project management of projects, and I was either doing that or sort of swanning about at events and just chatting, drinking and talking about beer. And actually in the, you know, short 6 months, especially during the first bit of lockdown, our only other employee, his wife was expecting a baby, so he did a lot of working from home because he just didn't want to risk getting sick, because who would look after his family? Would he even make it in the delivery room? So you know, we took on this person who's become doing admin support, and we suddenly found ourselves picking and packing in the warehouse. And you know, I do some of the sales meetings, so I, you know, of late, very very late in the last week, we've had a couple of tastings, and just seeing the brewers at work, it is a very varied. You have to be a mechanic, you have to be a scientist, you have to be an engineer, then you're creative, and then you're you know, looking after the brew, then you're packing orders and you're ordering supplies. So yeah, it's been really insightful for me.
You mentioned something there that I really like the sound of, is rather than thinking what can I get the best out of Mosaic, or you've gone in with a concept, and I think that's quite, you know, representative in the name. So I've just cracked the Sweeping Coast, but the idea of, right, okay, I've got a song in my mind, or I want to create this particular emotion or feeling in a beer from your perspective. How does that come to be in your mind? Do you have a big whiteboard where it's right, I want to make something that reminds me of my childhood at this particular point? What does that look like in practice?
Now, from the brewing sense, it's just what's in my head, and I usually just have to tell a production manager I'm going to need these things and work backwards from there. How do we do it? Like this Tuesday and Wednesday, we're brewing a Pilsner with koji.
Okay.
Works. Don't know if it would work. But
say what koji is for people who might not know.
Koji is basically a spore, kind of threads the line between mycelium and a bacterium. It's been used for thousands of years by Japanese culture to make everything from soy sauce to sake to
Use it in rice as
shoyu,
well, don't they?
loads of things. But anyway, it's spore-like, but it goes, and once it gets into a network of starches, it creates a mycelium network like mushrooms do, and then it breaks down starches and can release aromas depending on the spore strain. It can be anything from kind of very umami rich to grapefruit and lemon peel, and then if left long enough, it actually can start fermenting. What we're doing more like using it with koji in rice, that you then take the rice and go further and make like sake or shoyu or soy sauce or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we'll introduce it into the mash, a very, very, very thick mash. Leave it overnight, 24 to 36 hours. Allow that to create its mycelium network. Break down those starches, making a very fermentable pilsner, so we can get it very dry. And then scooping a bit of that, because it creates what looks like a white sort of fungus all over the rice or barley, whatever your substrate is. And then crop it off, keep it for later, because you can freeze it since it's spore forming. Freezing doesn't kill it. You can just keep that for later, and we can inoculate another one if it works out. Hoping to have something that's a very dry, small pilsner, 3.5%. And we're actually, the strain we're using is usually very grapefruit and lemon aromas to it. And then we're actually going to sneak in a little bit of Sabro in the whirlpool, a hop that I don't like very much, but I think that coconut sort of vibe, that coconut vibe with a very dry, small pilsner with hopefully that lemon and grapefruit sort of aromas that we hope that koji will bring, will allow Sabro to not be so over domineering as it can be beers that I've had with dry
But you
hop.
often, when you're thinking of a beer, so that one, I remember us having conversations with Yvonne from Jolly Good, and talking about sake and just going off on tangents. But I remember, I think I know when Bates has got a beer coming out of his mind, because we got a rocking chair in front of a big open fire, and he'll go to, he often just reads on a Kindle, but he's got a lot of sort of big proper chef books on the shelf, and he'll get those out and just slowly rock and read, and I can feel that a beer's coming out there, and I know that it's in his head and he's milling it around, and then he gives me the job of sort of helping him name it and write about it. And on the cans, we don't actually try to be too prescriptive about taste. Is a really subjective thing, and you could say that a lot of people get mango off Mosaic, say, but if you say, and especially in a world where we all, or many of us, go into an app and sort of review beers, if you put too much on there, that's just what people say they get, and half of the beauty is learning what people are discovering and seeing what they think it is, and I think that's half of the fun of it. So when we write these little blurby bits, we maybe put 2 or 3 words in. So for this dripping pitch, you know, the only things I can see that are descriptors, if you like, is citrus zest and resin, and maybe bitter, but on the whole, we try not to say, you know, you're going to taste this, which I think's nice to do.
Chris has just asked a really good question. How is it working with your partner day in and day out?
You want to go first?
Pretty shit most of the time. I mean,
don't hold back, babes.
But she can't hear you.
Fucking can.
No, I mean, it's just something I never really wanted to do, to be honest. But it just worked out that way. You play the cards.
He didn't. I had to muscle in. He didn't want me in it. And then I was like, so where's that brewery then, right? You know? And
But I mean, it's mostly good because you can sound off one another, you can figure things out and stuff like that. But it is
I think
straining in particular points of like going through the build, costing and
I mean, the
all of
build
that
just would have.
stuff.
The build was just difficult, whether we were together or not. That was just challenging. I think us
I mean,
as people.
couples in a position where they're doing an IKEA cabinet normally on the brink of break, so I can't imagine something on that scale.
Yeah, I think as personality types, we actually bring complementary skills to the business, because open book, closed book, maybe, and
I mean, at the end of the day, it ends up being good. Because I'll be honest, I don't like working with anybody. I like working alone. But it's made
so
me
imagine what's that like to work with.
Yeah, so it's
He's got to have someone he trusts, otherwise he's just
made me personally have to do things to discover of how you work with other people and stuff like that. Because there's nothing, you're forced to it, so it's like you're always around one another. But then I think we're both quite independent enough that I'm happy. You know, I'm not one of those persons that's going to be like up against somebody all the time in a partnership. You know, I like my alone time, and I'm quite fine. Like, oh, you're going to be gone for 3 days.
Well,
what am I going to do?
We're not in each other's pocket, are we? Like, I don't think we're the type of couple that believes that he completes me and we're each other's everything. You know, there's a lot of things that just aren't his vibe that I love. And
a partnership in the true sense of it, basically. It's not that makes sense. Sense.
And it is challenging, but we've got this common baby. Like, we've got a child, and then we've got duration, and we both love it completely and in totally different ways. And I think Bates gets an entirely different thing from it, and to what I do, and there's space enough for both of us.
Yeah, I think if you're too much alike, it wouldn't work very well. Completely different, it helps you fill in gaps.
Yeah, probably helping our relationship in a way to have the business, because it's helping us learn the things we can tolerate and
Yeah, so I typically don't like doing talks and speaking and being in front of people and stuff like that.
Whereas I start wilting if I don't get it. Yeah.
I mean, I generally, and when I start and actually do them, I'm not one of those people that's scared of talking in public. It's just I don't like talking. So
well, you don't always feel the need to fill the room, do you? You just want to do what you want to do. So you are a solitary creature, and you don't need a lot of sociability, I guess.
But yeah, it makes you learn too, because I mean, there's so many aspects of it that Miranda's so much better at than I am. I can make good beer and do that sort of stuff. I can plan, and I'm very mechanical and make things and do things. But
if no one hears about it, does a tree fall in the desert or wherever?
I mean, I'm just not going to say that's a great beer name, but if a tree falls in the desert, it's on the can in months to come.
Yeah.
So if all gets back, if we get some sense of normality, what would you hope to see? Where do we want to see duration in, say, a year's time? You know, we get life back somewhat to normal. Where do we want to see the brewery go?
I'd like to be putting some beer back in the kegs, because fuck me, all of the cans that we're having to do, 40 hectoliters of just canning.
Well, yeah, batch you could probably do it
gets tiring, because I mean, we have a good canning line, but it's still a good solid 8 hours, 7 hours of just sitting there canning. Yeah. Which is good. It's
I really enjoy these events, because you haven't got the travel. But I do miss going out. I think that in a year's time we will be right here, but maybe a few more people will venture out this way. One thing that we've really seen is a local pickup. We did a click and collect today, and we had 3 times the amount of people come along that we had 3 weeks ago. And we always thought that we'd have to be a very soft touch out here, because it's a little bit of the Outer Hebrides of beer, and yet people love it and dig it, and they're like, what, you want to be here? That's great. We know stuff like this, and this is beautiful beer. So I think we'd like to be exactly where we are here, maybe have a little bit of our wild offering coming out, maybe have a little bit of a footfall where people could come, and just be beginning to build that destinational thing that people can come and drink beer at Source and just see what it is that we fell in love with for putting a brewery out here. I kind of think this has taught me that I maybe don't want to commit to like 1,000,001 festivals and events. I'd really like the events we go to and the Meet the Brewers to be really meaningful, to have had a little forethought to them. Doreen, who works at Cloudwater, she sent me a sort of script that she sends out to all of the venues that they're going to consider participating at. And I think before this, they were at maybe 2 to 3 different events nationally and internationally, like a week, and we were like, we don't have the team to do that. We could maybe do 1 or 2 a month. And so I think it'd be quite nice to just decide maybe like that you can do 6 festivals a year, and that you can do an event out a month and really make them count. I'd really like that, because I think just just the brewer standing at the bar, or someone from the brewery standing at the bar, just there for the lulz, and no one really asks anything, it doesn't really help anyone. It doesn't help the bar. And I think, you know, new people into craft beer really do love a sit down and a talk and be introduced, and I think that's really important. So I'd love to see that change happen when we go back out there. But don't think that means don't ask us. We'd love to be asked. We're a new brewery. We'd like not be and above ourselves, but just make it meaningful.
It just means I hopefully think where I'd like it to be in a year is we'll have our kind of mixed fermentation rolling. Got spawn beer and a foeder right now that's really rolling along.
Yeah.
And then we should be able to have that getting to a point that we can release something from that about every 2 months or something, and then a bit more as we go along, obviously, as we're building that culture on the beer front, and then turning people on to, you know, what beer is about, conviviality, smaller beers that you can have several of, exploring a little bit of flavor there, because the way I like to make beer is if you want to and you really want to dig deep, you can sit there and you can ponder over it and all of that, but at the same time it needs to be simple enough that you're just enjoying it with friends and you don't go any further than that. So I'd like people to go back to that sort of, instead of dissecting beer, just enjoy beer.
But I think some people love dissecting it, and you know, anything that's collectible, you're gonna get collectors, so people want to break it down, but equally don't lose the point of what happens when you have a beer and the enjoyment of just coming together. But I think you can dissect it, but maybe not so much Emperor's New Clothes, or is on here, and I think that's Hayley saying that she wants to come with her family for a visit. And anyone who is thinking that, we never say no, and we really love having people coming and seeing where we are. So that's really nice to hear.
Get more people here.
A Bates barbecue has been suggested by Chris, so who knows?
Well, that's going back to events. I think while we would like to pare back events, we want to make them a bit more special. So, you know, why just have a meet the brewer at a bar? Why not have people come up here for a weekend, see all of the beaches, and then we have something on a Friday or Saturday night like that. Like maybe I cook a whole pig in the ground.
We'll do like a low country boil and loads of seafood around.
Bring something around it rather than just we did this so we could sell 10 kegs to this bar. Yeah. Sort of thing.
But also there is so much to discover around here. Like a 20-minute stroll from the brewery, there's a really beautiful campsite that's been built with real love and attention, and there's lots of reclaimed artifacts that make up roundhouses, and it's built with a very communal aspect, but lots of private spaces and boats in the field that you can sleep in, and silos with wood burners. And there's all these crazy, like Norfolk is this place that time forgot a little bit, and everyone's sort of that is here. You're not on the way anywhere, so you have to want to come or if you're here, someone's left you behind. So there's just this whole eccentric way of living that everyone embraces out here, and I really like that.
Yeah,
So there's a lot to
it's kind of the
while away the time with.
Yeah, it's kind of the Vermont of the UK to me, of the fact that people, you gotta want to go there, and then once you're there, there's so much shit you can find, but people just don't know about it. It's off the beaten track, and because of the beaten track, people have been kind of left with their own devices, and just to
we see people driving random vehicles that they've sort of MacGyvered together that look like Harley Davidson bug wasp roadmobiles, or amazing castles and just beautiful farm shops, and sound like a travel guide, but it is stunning. And then there's just so much that is a non-people, just landscape and just sweeping coasts.
No, exactly. But I've just noticed the time, so I thought before I let you go, for anyone who's not been lucky enough to have one of your beers, if you wanted them to just understand duration in a glass, what would be the beer that you'd say, have that will give you the introduction you need to our brewery?
I'm gonna have to go with Turtles. Bates would probably go at the farm.
Yeah, it's a Bet the Farm or Doses or Pilsner or like that. Just
by popular demand, it's this one. By the brewer's mind.
Turtles rocked my world the first time I had that. So I think that's for saying that, I think Quiet Song is a cracking introduction as well. So Turtles is killer, both Teenage Mutant version and in a can. So that's a good shout. So if you could tell everyone one
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Virtual Pub Club's been going for a year now. Scary times. But so once again, if people want to buy your beer, apart from looking in their local bottle shops, where can they go?
We have a web shop called shop.durationbeer.com, and at the moment we're running a introductory 10% offer. So you just need to type in beer at checkout.
There you go. Just beer. You might remember that because it's what we're all obsessed with.
We offer a builder box, so you can just pick all the beers you want in, or mix packs and 6-packs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been a real pleasure to get to hear a bit more about Duration, drink your lovely beer, and just have a chat with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we'll make sure to get you back on when we've got some sense of normality, so we can plan the Bates barbecue big event where we all book out a campsite.
Yeah, come out. It's great out here. Can't wait to host you all.
Oh, look forward to it. Well, thanks again, guys. Follow them on Instagram if you don't, and look forward to getting yourself some Quiet Songs going. Thanks again, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.